Question, real estate in California. What the Seriously, can someone help? What's an escrow? What's an ARM? What is an REO? What is pre-approval? Can I get pre-approval? Why is inventory so low? Why are interest rates so high? Oh, interest rates not so high? How low is low? How not so high is right.
Before you go down the road of questions, get expert help at championsofhome.com. California Association of Realtors. Who's your realtor?
Hello, travelers. My name is Grace Simmons, and this is the Random and Wonderful podcast. Settle in and listen to stories of wanderlust and transformation as you gain tips to inspire your next travel experience. The Random and Wonderful is brought to you by the Amethyst Palava Hut, LLC. Hello, travelers, and welcome to the Random and Wonderful podcast. I'm Grace Simmons, your host. Today's going to be a little different than our usual program. So instead of our stories about travel, I actually want to focus on something that is travel related, which is the anxiety that comes up when people are traveling, and that can affect your sleep and other things. So today I'm going to welcome Otis Gray, our guest, who is a radio producer and the host of Sleepy, which is a podcast where he reads you a bedtime story. So welcome to the show, Otis.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so I'm curious because your podcast essentially is you're hoping the listener is asleep by the end, right?
Yeah, I am professionally boring. So ideally, by the end, you are no longer listening to me. Or you are, but definitely not consciously. Yeah.
Right, right.
The less you hear my show, the better it is. Yeah.
I think you actually said that in one of your episodes, or like that's like your tagline, which cracks me up. Like, oh, what do you mean? But seriously, as you're reading the story, you're just like, oh, everything's so peaceful.
I know. I feel like people don't even, I hear so many people that don't even get through the intro anymore. Like, hi, I'm Otis Gray. And then
they're out.
Don't even hear the stories anymore. They want to hear Peter Pan, but apparently they've never got to it. Yeah. It means it's working.
Like Wind in the Willows. I was like, one day I'm going to hear the whole story.
Never. Not on my show.
So were you always like a storyteller, or was that something that came up as you were doing the podcast?
No, I don't think so. I got into it, this show specifically, in a very weird kind of by accident way. I have a background as like a fine artist. So after I went to school for fine art, I was working as a fine artist for years afterwards, and I was a sculptor, so it was a lot of manual labor jobs. And I kind of realized that fine art, the world, was not my thing as much, and what I really wanted to do was actually, ironically for this show, travel. And I was listening to a million podcasts a day in my, manual labor jobs. And after like a couple of years of listening to podcasts that just, fascinated me, felt like I was going to grad school all over again, I was like, I think I could do this, very naively. Yeah. So I quit that job to like start making podcasts and being a reporter, and obviously ran out of money immediately and was like working in restaurants and doing everything to make ends meet. And I was really trying to make like reported radio stories for, NPR shows and all the podcasts that I loved. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like sending it out to friends, and most of them at that point were like restaurant workers, like crazy cooks and servers, and who all had trouble sleeping because of the industry. And I just was like, hey, listen to this thing I made. If you have feedback, let me know. And I'd ask them like what they thought, and they were like, I don't know, man, I fell asleep immediately. I was like, that's not good. That was about immigration. I really need you to like pay attention to that. And they were like, I'm sorry, man, it's just your voice. You could read a phone book and I'd go to sleep. So like as a joke for them, I knew how to like start a podcast and get it online. So as a joke for them, I think I at first literally read the phone book and like put it online, and then I read like Alice in Wonderland, and I was just sending it to my like friends as a joke. And then I could just see the metrics on like, the hosting site. I could just see these like numbers ticking up and up and up. And I was like, wow, I don't have that many friends. And it was clear. And I had called it Sleepy just offhandedly, which I guess was lucky because it was easy for people to find. And then, yeah, over the following years, it just like, it blew up really quickly, and it started to become something that took a little bit more seriously as far as just trying to like get it out to more people. So no, I was not originally a storyteller. All this is by accident. And now I do not serve in restaurants anymore. I do make radio and podcasts full time, and Sleepy is a part of that. And for better or worse, it is probably the thing that I'm known most for. Yeah.
I like that. It's like a happy accident that a lot of people have appreciated, I'm sure, especially travel. Yes, just the buildup of travel, I think, but also just our day to day and the routines and all the things that we do that occupy our minds, all of these different things that are going on. They're just mentally draining and exhausting. And so to be able to have just like a few moments of calm, and all of a sudden you find yourself out asleep, and you're like, oh, okay. Like my mind can finally get quiet. So
the irony is, like, I'm a really bad sleeper, and there's like at this point thousands and thousands and thousands of people who like immediately can hear my voice and go to sleep, and I'm like a little bit jealous, like people traveling or trying to get like a nap in between like shifts at a hospital or something like that, and they just conk out in the middle of the day. Yeah, so I'm glad I can do that for them. I am.
Do you ever listen to yourself?
Oh God, no. I mean, I have to all the time because like, I edit, I have to like listen to the shows, make sure they're good. But, I listen on like, 2 times speed. And then I make radio for a living. I host a lot of shows. So I have to listen to my voice so much. So the less I can do that, the better. But no, I think I tried listening to my voice to sleep once in the beginning, like 6 or 7 years ago, and immediately was like, nope, hard no, nope.
Not doing that.
Not my thing. No, I try other stuff.
How do you select the stories that you share on the podcast? Is there like a theme to them, or?
I think like depending on what time of year it is, I try to do stuff that's slightly topical. So, during the spring and summer, it's great to do something like, The Secret Garden. And then, every October I do spooky stories, a lot of Edgar Allan Poe and, Mary Shelley. And then December rolls around, a lot of Dickens and like Christmas stories and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's just kind of like what I feel like reading during the day, because hopefully people aren't that picky because they're going to sleep. But like, right now is the beginning of the new year, which means, all the stories that I read on Sleepy, they're all in the public domain. So that means that every year, new stories become legal to read out loud. So it's like January 1st for me and my listeners is kind of like Christmas.
It's like your Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, finally, The Great Gatsby became public domain. And that was like a big deal because people had been yelling at me to read that for years. And I was like, I can't, I'm sorry, just wait. So this year, we've got a whole, new swath of awesome stories to read, which is exciting. But usually it's just like, I have kind of a schedule and books I've wanted to read, and I switch them around. Sometimes I'll just like, flip open my messages or email. And if a listener really wants a specific story, like read to their kid because it's their favorite book, I'm like, yeah, that's what we're doing tonight. It's like semi-planned, but a lot of the time it's very impulsive and whatever takes me in that moment.
One of the episodes I think that's always stuck in my mind is I think you were like out in the woods somewhere and you were recording the sounds around you. And I was like, that is so cool. And I try to use that with this podcast too. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. So let me ask, did you like it?
I did.
Like it helped you sleep?
Was that not a hit? Yeah, it did. Because those are the kind of sounds that I listen to anyway.
Okay. Same. Because I grew up in rural Vermont. So what I did was I took a recorder and I essentially just put it in the woods of like outside my family home on like a nice summer night, because the sounds of like, wind in the trees and, like cicadas and stuff like that, like that's, and peepers, these little frogs, I think they made a guest appearance in the recording. That's the stuff that like really puts me to sleep. And I thought it was genius because I'm like, who would not want to listen to this? I'm glad you did, because a lot of people wrote into me and said, what in God's name is this? Like, you just put me in the middle of the woods when I go to sleep. This is not comforting to me. And in retaliation, had a lot of people being like, could you do one where it's just the sound of like cars driving by and like honking and maybe some like a subway train or something? Because for people who grew up in a city, That's their white noise. I even had someone who grew up in Coney Island be like, could you put some like roller coasters and stuff in the background? And I was like, I don't, it's not what I grew up falling asleep to. But a lot of people apparently had bad dreams about like being stuck in the woods and like, had to fight off bears and things. So that episode was definitely controversial on the Sleepy feed. I'm glad it worked. I'm glad it worked for you. I didn't take it down because it worked for some people. Yeah.
So when I'm describing this podcast, I always reference that episode.
Well, you've given a lot of people nightmares, probably. Yeah. And that's on you.
That's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Everyone's got their own thing, you know?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own thing.
Are you ready to finally make that dream a reality? Maybe it's updating your kitchen, paying down high-interest credit cards, or covering tuition. Your home is more than where you live. It's also your most powerful asset. At Unlock, we make it simple to turn equity into options. With a home equity agreement, you can access cash today without taking on another monthly payment. Imagine the freedom to invest in your home, reduce financial stress, or finally start that big project you've been putting off. It's your home. It's your future. Unlock it today. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
That's so funny. So speaking of, do you have any travel stories? Because you originally said that you wanted to get into or do something that allowed you to travel.
Yeah.
Were you able to accomplish that part of your dream?
Ironically, yeah. Like, so I'm totally like self-employed freelance person, and it's been the case where I get to travel with a microphone and like report stories and do interviews, and like I really love doing stories about food and politics. So, if I find a place or a person that I really want to go visit or something I really want to eat, chances are I'm just going to kind of like finagle like a story pitch around that and pitch it to whoever. Currently I'm working with people like Milk Street Radio and America's Test Kitchen. And I'll just say like, hey, there's these like crazy hikers in the White Mountains that do these crazy meals for the last 100 years. And they've got this crazy story, da-da-da-da-da. I just want to go hiking, and get, and like be paid to travel and take my girlfriend on a little hiking day, and they'll say yes. And I'll be like, no way. Okay. And then I get to like, essentially like make a living hopping around and like, chasing stories down and talking to people and interviewing. And it's pretty crazy that it actually happened because it was very naive at the time. I mean, a lot of my time is spent behind a computer, but I can take that computer anywhere. So yeah, like a couple of months ago, I got to go on like a 5-week road trip working along the way. So somehow it worked out. Yeah, it did.
Do you have any travel stories where things didn't go exactly as planned?
Yeah, many.
Do you have any that you can share?
Oh my. I can tell you one that happened to me recently. So I have this really ridiculous van that Sleepy listeners probably know of because I've referenced it and have recorded from it a lot. I built this van about 4 years ago to facilitate this whole travel itch that I have. And I was sponsored by Purple Mattresses at the time. So they sent me a bed for my van, and I like put it in there, and I gutted it and put like wood paneling everywhere and pretty flowery curtains. And then I made it so that it could be in my recording studio on the road. And it's lovely. I love this thing. Her name's Lil Blue. She's like a blue Ford E250 van. And I've taken her across the country 4 times now. And I record along the way. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I got a little cocky because it's a 2-wheel van, but I've definitely brought her to places in the world and the country where you wouldn't think a van like that could and should go. And I was in the desert in southern Utah, and I was really trying to get very, very far out into the desert to this rock formation I heard was really cool. And they're all service roads that go on for like way, 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 way long. You don't see people for hours. And yeah, I was feeling really cocky because I'd taken the van down some pretty ridiculous roads before that. And there was these big signs in the middle of the desert on this like one-way track that was like, if you do not have four-wheel drive, do not go past this. And if they put a sign out there in the middle of the desert, it means something went down there, you know? But I flew too close to the sun. I was like, I think if I drive fast enough, I could probably get through this sandy part. And I tried, and about 50 yards in, I found out that quicksand is like a actual thing that exists on Earth. And I just went straight into this sand, and the sand on the side just kind of dropped, and I just put my van on top of this little plateau and completely bottomed out in the middle of nowhere. And I like remained calm and hopped out, and I like looked at the sun, and I was like, okay, we probably got about like 4 hours of daylight. How much food do we have in here in case this doesn't go well? And I was like very calmly kind of like trying to dig this, van out with a little shovel. And after like a couple hours, like, this is actually not a great situation. This is not good. And it was really ridiculous. I had food, I had water, but like hours later, someone came by and essentially helped push it out with their four-wheel car, and all was right in the world afterwards. But it was a pretty hairy experience. The van got dinged up pretty bad, but she survived. That's a pretty PG rated one, I think. But that was recent, and it was humbling. It was very humbling. Yeah. She needed a lot of repairs after that.
I would imagine so, yes.
Yeah. Slept like a baby that night. Pretty tired.
Okay, so manual labor and forest sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
What is one of your favorite places that you had a chance to visit?
Oh, God. There's just so many incredible... I think the U.S. has some unbelievable places to visit. I am such a national park ho. I love national parks so much. Glacier National Park in Montana is one of my favorite places. It's just so astounding and huge and beautiful. Abroad, the first thing that comes to my mind is this little city called San Sebastian in northern Spain, which is right in Basque country, basically on the French border. And it is one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been in my entire life. The Basque people know how to eat. Good Lord, do they know how to eat. It's just this beautiful city that's kind of built around this like scallop-shaped bay that they call the Pearl. And it is just like, it's just an astoundingly beautiful place, and everyone is so nice. And like, it was like Anthony Bourdain's favorite place to eat in Europe. And you go there and you're like, oh yeah, I understand why.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, so that really stands out to me. If anyone has a chance to go to San Sebastian, just go. It's idyllic. It's incredible. Yeah.
Have you heard of or done so they have a few of the Camino de Santiago. Okay. Did you participate in that, or have you done any research on that?
Oh yeah, that's another trip for sure that I need to do. It actually passed right south of San Sebastian. So I was driving around it and like crossed it multiple times traveling around there, but I definitely was like, oof, I don't even want to do part of this. I want to do the whole thing one day. So it's definitely one of those hikes that's on a list for sure.
I'm interested in the path that goes from Portugal up into Spain.
Yeah.
So some people, they kind of hesitate to travel because of that anxiety or a fear of the unknown. What advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, take this with a grain of salt because I'm a straight white dude. So traveling in the world is like a lot easier for me than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about things when I'm traveling in the same way that other people do. That's just what it is. But I would say, despite that, I think that you can always scare yourself out of doing something. And more often than not, people, when you're traveling, are a lot more generous than you might think they are. And I think we, especially as Americans, hear about different countries, and because they're different and because they just do things differently than we do, it like inherently sounds risky or dangerous or uncomfortable. But in my experience, there's been plenty of places I've gone that are astoundingly more comfortable to exist in than, an everyday, United States city. So I would say do your research, both for your own safety and because you are going to someone else's home. Be a good guest. Know what you're getting into. Don't just show up and be like, I'll be safe. Know where to go and where not to go. Like, that's a real thing. You can't just come to Brooklyn and just start walking aimlessly through Queens at night, or Brooklyn or Manhattan or anywhere. Same with another country. Just don't be stupid. But I would also say once you get that research done, that will hopefully make you feel more confident. And at a certain point, you just have to buy the plane ticket. You just have to, because that's what's stopping you. As soon as you get there, the excitement begins. But the scariest part is being on the precipice, oh my God, am I really about to put myself out of my comfort zone like this? Am I really about to spend X amount of money on a plane ticket? Am I really going to take this much time off work? And the answer is, for me, it's always, I think all those things. And then I'm like, will I regret not doing this? And if the answer is yes, I no longer have a choice, because regret is the most annoying thing to me. Way more annoying than, losing money or, being uncomfortable. Regret is something that I no longer tangle with. So yeah, I would say just really do your research and be comfortable and have a plan, and then be willing to stray from that plan and go with the flow, because you're in someone else's home, and yeah, you're kind of at the mercy of that culture wherever you're going.
I like that. If you consider that you may regret it, then you no longer have a choice.
It's just too annoying at this point. It's keeps you up at night. I'll book him way in advance just to quell the anxiety of what if I never see Jordan and Petra, and now I'm ugh, well, now I have to buy a ticket to Jordan. So I got when am I going to fit that in? Doesn't matter, because now it's in my head, and then, I'm pretty obsessive about that kind of stuff. So now it's just a matter of figuring out the time and the money, not if, really. It's more of a when.
Are you ready to finally make that dream a reality? Maybe it's updating your kitchen, paying down high-interest credit cards, or covering tuition. Your home is more than where you live. It's also your most powerful asset. At Unlock, we make it simple to turn equity into options. With a home equity agreement, you can access cash today without taking on another monthly payment. Imagine the freedom to invest in your home, reduce financial stress, or finally start that big project you've been putting off. It's your home. It's your future. Unlock it today. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
Is there a story or a travel experience that you've come across that's kind of changed your perspective?
Oh my God. Yeah. I would say the greatest moments of perspective I've ever had in my life have all come from travel. Oh man. A lot of very humbling experiences that involve, when I was younger, me putting myself into stupid situations in nature where my mortality became very clear. Just doing really stupid stuff, being unprepared, going into rugged wilderness with not enough resources and getting lost and stuff like that, and really being oh, this is a really bad situation, way worse than me putting a van in some sand,
Yeah.
But I think one of the seminal experiences back in the day was when I was 22. It was right after college. I'd never really traveled before. This is before I even got any kind of itch to travel, but I always wanted to go to Peru ever since I was a kid. I don't think I'd ever been outside the country. So after college, I was in that sweet spot of post-college, don't need a job immediately. And I had like a couple grand to my name. And I was like, I'm just buying a one-way ticket to Peru. Figure it out after. And I did it. And I ended up spending like 5 months there. And one pretty intense experience was I planned like a 5-day hike on the Salcantay Trail to Machu Picchu from Cusco. And that is something that you can do unguided, which I did. I bought a map and I had a couple Americans with me. And so we went unguided on this trip. And it was just astoundingly beautiful. It was incredible. And like, you know, I'd known so much about Machu Picchu up to that point. I was like a savant on the subject. And I was so excited to be there. And like, it was incredible. And then when we got there, you know, right before we got up to the actual ruins, the roads were all blocked because locals had like, you know, rolled boulders and cinder into the roads, basically protesting how the government was treating their land through like, you know, hydro plants and just the tourist traffic and everything that brings with it, the development in the land around it. And there were riots all around Machu Picchu because the locals had been battling them for decades, battling the government, trying to have some kind of agency over their land. And I remember not really expecting that and seeing it, and then also seeing a lot of people trying to get to Machu Picchu, like tourists, and being really frustrated that they couldn't get there, and being like, I bought this ticket, I can't get up to the, like being just kind of annoying, resentful travelers. And yeah, that was really humbling for me because like there was like gunfire, you know, between like police and the locals. I don't remember if it was like rubber bullets or whatever, but like it was like a violent, you know, retaliation against this protest. And then I saw these other travelers around me being really frustrated that it interrupted their travel plans. And you can go from your front door to the front steps of Machu Picchu without walking more than like 50 yards if you want to. You know, you can take buses and trains and everything. It's an unbelievably catered and touristy experience if you want. Very cushy. And I don't know, to have that kind of privilege and then be annoyed when things aren't going your way. It was my first time traveling ever, and it really made me think far more about where it is I'm going and really know what's going on there, and don't like idolize these places because people still live in all these places that we're so fancy on traveling to. They are still living, breathing ecosystems, and you visiting them are now a part of it, and you contribute to it, and you affect it, and you have a choice to affect it either positively or negatively. And the bare minimum we can do is at least educate ourselves on the places we're going. So that was a really big one for me, just seeing it real up close, and afterwards, never not considering, really thinking about where I'm going and trying to understand what is actually happening there, you know? Yeah. Trying to be a respectful guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the things I think that's really key, especially for newer travelers, is yes, you want to explore, and being in a new place is exciting. But also that research, safety purposes aside, is also so that you're aware of where you're going and what's happening, right? Yeah. So maybe you can't check out.
It is for you first. You got to be be a little bit selfish to make sure you're safe. And then the secondary thing is like, do your research because just once again, you're going to someone else's home. And I think like I even stray away from the kinds of phrases like, oh, that's on my list, which is something that I use by accident a lot of times. And when I say, I'm like, because I don't love just putting people's homes on like a little checkbox, you know, it makes me feel a little weird. So I say like, that's a place I really want to go. That's a place I really want to visit. So I think going somewhere, taking 100 selfies in someone's home and then like leaving without really contributing, you know, it's not my style. And coming from like a little ski town where like it totally functioned on tourism, I can tell you that it's definitely not the local style either. Like, you know, as long as you're not a jerk and you know, contribute into the place that you're going directly and try to meet the people who are living there, you're going to be taken care of, you know, but that comes first. Yeah.
Do you think where you grew up influenced that perspective as well. So if you lived in a place that wasn't affected by tourism, and then to, then being a tourist or even considering yourself as a traveler, do you think those two kind of intersected?
I think probably, yeah. Both because I came from like a very, very rural place where there wasn't a lot of traveling. Like a lot of people, I know people who are like, 10th generation Vermonters where I'm from who have no interest in going elsewhere. Like it was a very tight world, and Vermont is like, not a very diverse place. So like, yeah, it's pretty insular. So I think it definitely fostered my desire to travel a lot. And my mom had traveled quite a bit when she was younger, and she definitely like instilled in my brother and I like, there's a lot more out here in the world. Like get out of here and come back because this is a beautiful place.
Come back, yeah.
But don't lose your marbles. But like, get out there. And then as far as like seeing tourists, yes, I would probably say in the long run, yes, because I remember there was definitely like kind of a disdain for people coming from out of town for, I don't know, really like hometown pride reasons. Like it was always like if you saw someone driving down our dirt roads with like New York or Jersey plates, that was like, this is like a hilarious thing that like the worst thing you could call someone where I grew up was a Flatlander. Like that was like, if you wanted to like pick a fight with someone in school, you could say whatever about the family members or whatever, their sister, nothing. If you called someone a Flatlander where I'm from, like, it was on. For some reason, that was really offensive. And really it was just saying, you're not from here, and that was the worst thing you could be, was like not from some place, from that place. And I definitely don't treat people like that now that I still go back there plenty, and I just don't treat people like that in general. But it definitely gave me a perspective of like, well, if we felt that way, then there's no way that like other places that see, hundreds of thousands of tourists every year don't feel the same way. And you go to other places and when you're being like sold to as a tourist, and like, your place. I remember especially like when I was traveling in, Peru, I was in a lot of places that like tourists didn't go. And I'm like a 6 foot like white dude. Like I did not fit in, and like everything was more expensive for me. I got gringo priced up the wazoo.
I saw you from a mile away, yeah.
Oh God, and I was broke, but like I was like walking Mr. Moneybags. I'm like, wow, you guys got the wrong idea about me. But yeah, like I definitely know from growing up there, like what I'm on the other side now, and I'm not from there. And for some people, that can be the worst thing. I've been in places where I have not been welcomed, where I'm not supposed to be, and people being very pissed off that I'm around because their home has been screwed up by people coming into it, because neighborhoods had been gentrified, land has been taken over to facilitate much needed tourist money. That's the thing about where I grew up too, is like we railed on tourists all the time that were coming to our ski mountain and coming to see our pretty leaves. But if we didn't have them, a good majority of the people there would not have jobs. So we still need the tourism. The locals still need tourism to live their lives. But there's also this tension between like, our home is still our home. And when does it cross that line of not being that? If you go to the base of Machu Picchu, that town Aguas Calientes, that's a tourist town now. That used to be the only reason that exists is because of the visitors of Machu Picchu. That no longer, I can't imagine that feels very Peruvian by any means, Yeah, so there's a real balance between this idea of travel and respecting who lives there, and like respecting a place versus idolizing a place in a way that's not helpful to anyone, consuming it.
Are you ready to finally make that dream a reality? Maybe it's updating your kitchen, paying down high-interest credit cards, or covering tuition. Your home is more than where you live. It's also your most powerful asset. At Unlock, we make it simple to turn equity into options. With a home equity agreement, you can access cash today without taking on another monthly payment. Imagine the freedom to invest in your home, reduce financial stress, or finally start that big project you've been putting off. It's your home. It's your future. Unlock it today. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
Do you have an example, I guess, kind of like a either or of some way that you can show respect to a place while enjoying it versus idolizing or just kind of setting yourself apart?
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, like, just do your basic, like, I feel like some people don't even go and try to do like a Wikipedia search on the places they're going, do that. Find out where, like, if you're going to, a city like Barcelona, figure out what's going on there. Like, look a little bit into the history. If you're going to Guatemala City, a place that has a rich and also turbulent political history, like, do some digging, like, figure out like what their government actually is, how it functions, and like get a basic idea of the history. But I would say, like, two things for me that are really important is always try to learn basic language, like really basic language, and actually try. Like, I really, really try not to go into a place and if I'm like, oh, ¿dónde está el baño? And then they respond quickly, and I don't understand it. I'll be like, actually, could you explain that in English? Like, I don't want to do that. And I think a lot of other countries that rely on Western tourism learn English for that specific reason, to facilitate us. I was recently in Italy a couple of years ago, and especially in southern Italy, they don't care. They don't care at all. We, go there all the time, as Americans. And it was really refreshing that so many people didn't know English, that where I was going, I was not catered to. I was not treated as like white boy from abroad. It was like, all right, catch up. Like, what do you want to eat,
Yeah.
And then the other thing is eat their food. Eat the local food. Like, Bourdain had some like awesome quote about like grandma's kitchen rule or something like that. Like, if grandma serves something up to you, it doesn't matter whose grandma it is really, or if you like what it is put in front of you, you eat grandma's food, be respectful. So I try to like really find places that locals will eat. And usually you can tell by walking around and looking in and seeing, oh, those are locals. And then go in and look over to whatever people are eating and say, I want that.
I want that. Yeah.
And they serve it in front of you and you're like, whoa. And you eat it with a smile on your face, and you try to talk to the waiter and you leave a good tip and be nice. I think that is a really refreshing thing, to do. Anytime I make that kind of effort, it feels like it's cordially received. And every time I see it from the outside, when people are just like trying to like shove Google Translate in someone's face and be like, why don't you understand me, in a country that's not theirs? I know what side I want to be on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the questions I always ask if you have something to ask me, and it was one of the practices that I use to get myself to sleep. When you know how to do something or that you should do something, but you don't do it. Something I found to be really helpful is sitting up. So not completely getting into my bed, but like sitting up for about 10 minutes, just in silence. And I've felt like that has it's been a calming thing, but it's also like, it turns into like a prayer or like meditation or visualization of something.
Like before bed, you're sitting up?
Yeah. So not like trying, because I think once you get into bed and you're nice and relaxed, I start thinking about my whole day, and that's not what I need. I need
you need a transition. You need to wind down.
I need a transition. And I think that's what those 10 minutes kind of give me. So, and I find that I'm a bit more receptive to like when I'm listening to those sounds or like stories, that I've already done like that 10 minutes of switching things off and then getting into a point where I can actually relax. So my
Well,
question,
when you travel, like when you travel, your sleep gets messed up because you either got jet lag or like you're just in an uncomfortable place. You're not in your bed. What do you have to do when you travel to like set the tone for sleep?
so bad practice I have when I get to a new place is I always do a tour. I do a food tour, and it's my way of checking out the area and seeing like, nice places to see, nice places to go, but it's a few hours. And so I'm kind of walking and whatever extra tiredness is happening, like restless tiredness, it gets out. So after walking for 2 or 3 hours, eating a bunch of food, you kind of mosey your way back to where you're staying. I think I find it a little easier to go to sleep, shower, I'm out.
That's good. Yeah. Get there
If
and
not,
exhaust yourself.
yeah, because then you're like, I'm in a new place. I'm really excited. I want to see things. And you're restless. And then that tiredness carries over into the next day. And so when you're supposed to be out and adventuring,
Yeah.
you're groggy and kind of annoying.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but my question for you is, what's a self-care practice that you use or have?
I feel like I have a lot that I try to do. One of them is lighting candles. I light lots of candles. In the morning, I try to have a really peaceful routine where I have my coffee and light a candle and like take a second before I immediately launch into a million things. So yeah, flames are very important for me. Running, I'm a pretty religious runner. If I go a few days without a run, which is the case right now, I get a little weird and the people around me can tell, I feel like. I also actually in the last year have been doing my own like kind of morning prayer meditation stuff. And it's actually partially because I've been in a 12-step program for like 4 years and it's taken me a long time to actually get on board with the actual meditation part of it. But I've been doing it for the last year and it's in the morning. Like as soon as I wake up, I just like sit down and do that. And wow, it took a while to like, I think feel the change, but it's been really, really not. I didn't realize how intensely I wake up a lot of the time because I have a lot of freelance jobs. I'm spinning a lot of plates and I don't do this as much recently in the last couple of years, but before, like I would wake up and turn on some crazy music, some like metal, rock, whatever, and just like walk around the apartment shadow boxing, and like getting psyched up for the day. And that's a crazy way to start your day. And sometimes you need to do that. But like recently, for the last like year, as soon as I wake up, I have this little pillow under my bed and I pull it out and I sit on it and I take a minute. And I take like usually 5 minutes and I just have a conversation with whatever, the universe. I'm like, hey, what's up? Thank you for my limbs. I love them. Thanks for keeping my car running and my people safe. And shelter's awesome. Thank you for that. I love knowing where my rent's coming from and food. And yeah, I by accident started basically doing a daily gratitude list. And good Lord, is that a good way to start the day? Really put things in perspective. And then I usually end with like, because I can be very overly ambitious and have too many things that I set a very high bar for like what is a successful day. And over the last few years, I've whittled it down. And I'm like, I just want to help one person do something today. That's it. Just let me like help one person do a thing, and then I'll go with the flow. I'll go with the flow, and give me an opportunity to help someone. And I've learned that lowering the bar for myself is a pretty good way to actually get a lot done and not be a crazy person, because we're all crazy. And it's not about getting rid of the crazy. It's about managing it and living with it. And that seems to be a way to live with mine. Still always trying. I'm not a great sleeper, but I try. Yeah. Drink a lot of water. I drink a lot of water.
Look, water and that meditation, I'll be halfway through the day and I'm like, why am I struggling? Why am I in such a brain fog? And I realized like, maybe I should first off, I should get something to drink, and maybe I should just take a few minutes and just sit quietly and reset.
My girlfriend and I complain about this all the time. We call it plant care. It's because it's so cliche. It's like, oh, we're just stupid plants. Like we just need water and like a little sunlight. I'm not that complicated. I'm not. Like I just need to be watered and fed and like be taken on a walk, and I'm not that complicated. If those basic things don't happen, everything goes bad, As long as those basic things happen, even if the rest of the world is swirling down the drain, it at least doesn't feel like it is. It's like, well, I feel really hydrated even though the world's on fire. So plant care, we're just stupid plants,
So before we go, is there anything that you would like to share or some advice that you could give to a novice traveler or someone who just needs to expand their world a little bit more?
Yeah. So I think it's really important you only have one life. And the reason you want to travel is because you're curious, maybe because you want to expand your mind a little bit. I would say if you're going to do that, really go out of your comfort zone. And I feel like there's some places in our heads that we want to travel that we kind of figure we can't because either it's too far or it's like too hard quotes, exotic, and do that. Go for it. At this point, when I go to somewhere I went hiking through Switzerland last year and, being in a Swiss city is not challenging. Everything is beautiful and runs so perfectly and really understandable, even if you don't speak the language, the symbols, and it was really great because it's just amazing to see another place. But I think the most formative moments I've had are places where it's really foreign to me and it's really harder to understand. And also when I put my body to work. So I do a lot better in nature in foreign places than I do in cities. So if you're in a city area, I really recommend going outside that city area and getting your hands in the dirt, really connecting with a place in a different way. I highly recommend if you have the funds to rent a car wherever you go. You think it's completely inaccessible, but compared to all the money you're going to spend on trains and buses and stuff like that, especially in places like Europe, you can usually rent a car for 15 to 20 euros a day, which a place to put your bags and travel when you're abroad is priceless and really ends up being more beneficial than you think it does. Definitely recommend knowing how to drive stick though. And which is really important. And also I highly recommend keeping a journal or a sketchbook when you travel, because I feel that when you're traveling, so much is happening so quickly and you're seeing so many things that you can get back to normal life and kind of feel like it didn't happen, or how do I even compile all these experiences? What just happened? You're just back in your life and back in your job. You just had a dream and you woke up from it and no one around you can relate to it. And I find that writing things down at the end of the day when they happen abroad, or I love to sketch. So just sketching a random tree or a person I see on a park bench when I'm abroad immediately brings me back to that place and helps me relive those memories in a really visceral way. So even if you're traveling and write down 2 sentences, just walked past the Louvre for the first time. This is what I'm feeling. I'm hungry. It's rainy out. Anything to bring you back there. Every time I move books around in my room and go through my sketchbooks, I get stuck on the floor for hours flipping through my sketchbooks and seeing a couple lines that I doodled somewhere in rural Guatemala years ago and being brought back immediately. And I feel I would really regret not having done that, because otherwise they're just these kind of amorphous memories. So take a lot of photos, but stay present. I know those are two things that are hard to balance. Take less photos of yourself and more photos of the things in front of you. And just document it. You'll be really happy you did one day. Yeah, that's my advice.
I like it. That's usually the especially with the photos. For those of us who try to journal or we attempt or we get distracted halfway in the trip and we forget to journal.
Yeah.
I always tell people to take pictures of what they're doing so then you can come back and remember that experience, write about that.
I do that too now because, again, things happen so fast. You feel like you don't even have time to write. And it is really, I just went on this trip, to the Southwest, and I still have 200 photos that I'm trying to like edit and go through and post, you know, not for anyone else, just for myself, you know, to like make sure it was real. So yeah, documenting I think goes a long way.
Cool. Otis, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you being a guest.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Can you please share your podcast link? And then do you also want to share your radio show?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so I do radio stuff for like on a contract basis for like NPR shows and stuff like that. So there's no real link to any specific show. But I will say that you can find the Sleepy podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else just by looking up Sleepy. And also you can follow me on Instagram at sleepy_podcast, which generally has turned almost exclusively into a travel log for me. Yeah. Those two things are basically where I'm at. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, please listen to Sleepy. It's helped me and I'm positive it will help you guys on your trip as well. Again,
Glad
Otis, thank
it.
you so much.
Thank you very much, Grace. Appreciate it.
Hey there, Grace here. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained some useful takeaways. Thank you so much for listening and staying until the end. Don't forget to rate the show or share it with some friends. Have a wonderful week. Take care. And remember, be bold, be curious, be ready to tell your story. You never know who needs it. Bye-bye.
Question: real estate in California. What the Seriously, can someone help? What's an escrow? What's an ARM? What is an REO? What is pre-approval? Can I get pre-approval? Why is inventory so low? Why are interest rates so high? Oh, interest rates not so high? How low is low? How not so high is right?
Before you go down the road of questions, get expert help at championsofhome.com. California Association of Realtors. Who's your realtor?